All right, let's get started. Well, everyone, I'm Laura Jackson. I am the 2020 chairman of YMWREA. And when I'm not doing that, I'm a senior managing director at FTI Consulting. And Caroline, over to you.
Hi, I'm Caroline Merck. I'm the current vice chairman for YMWREA this year. And outside of that, I am a vice president at CBRE focusing on office leasing.
Great. And today we're joined with David Dishy, who's president and president of development and acquisitions at L&M Development Partners. So thank you, David, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
If anyone has any questions during the presentation today or the conversation, you can feel free to enter them in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. All right, so let's get started. So David, how you doing? How's quarantine life?
I'm hanging in. This is actually, you're catching me on our first day. I'm not back, but like actually in the office after 3 months. So I was curious how I was going to feel. It's virtually, we're basically empty. We're just technically open. But it was kind of, I have to say, and I'm incredible, like life has been good with my family. It was like, it's nice to be back. I was like, oh, you know what? It's nice. Like, I was sort of pleasantly surprised by my sense of like, all right, it's time to, get back to work. I mean, not that we're not working hard, but in an office setting. So so I'm well, thank you. I'm feeling optimistic.
Well, that's good. I briefly went into the office yesterday and I kind of felt the same thing. It gives you like a little bit of that energy and just buzz back.
Right.
And I guess that means you passed the temperature check and all as well. So glad to hear you're safe to be with us.
I used that like little temperature thing that passed out that you put on your forehead. I had never seen that before. Yeah, I passed.
Good. So tell us a little bit about your career background. How did you get to where you are now?
All right, so I will go quickly because I'm older. I'm old. I started sort of in city planning. That was kind of my early interest in sort of cities and civic issues and planning, and definitely not like in real estate per se. If anything, I would say I was, as a young person, kind of wary of, evil real estate developers. So I worked for the city, actually the Department of City Planning, and I worked for what's now EDC, Economic Development, for a while after college and graduate school, and kind of loved that. And then, and to this day, some of my best friends are folks I met there, and so that was great. And then kind of made a fairly natural evolution from there. I worked for a while, kind of interested in those issues at a firm, HRNA, which is like a housing finance and public policy consulting firm that does stuff around the country. And actually those times we were doing a lot of military base reuse work, BRAC, which was like the congressional closure process was going on. So that was like large scale. And that was actually super interesting. And then I think I sort of slowly realized, as fascinating as all this was, a lot of the really interesting work and decision-making, the stuff that was impacting the world in the most dramatic way was often, some of it was often on the developer side. So I went to Forest City, Ratner at the time, and worked on, a lot of their kind of large-scale, interesting mixed-use public-private projects. And so that was combining those things. And, then I continued on that vein, and I spent a long time there. I spent a long time at Tishman Speyer, actually, which was incredible and kind of opened my eyes up to a world of real estate far beyond just sort of traditional ground-up dirt development. Much more global reach, much more, large real estate funds, all sort of stuff that sort of Tishman Speyer does incredibly well on an international level. And then really kind of like found my balance here at L&M, which is about all those things. I mean, we're often called a sort of double bottom line company, but very much about public-private, about creating healthy, positive civic communities, et cetera, and also just kind of, real estate investing and being sort of a smart, thoughtful investor. So that's been the arc. I sometimes joke, it's kind of at once depressing and interesting that sort of the things that interested one when you're 20 continue to interest one throughout the rest of your life. It's either good or bad, depending. As I tell my daughters, the decisions you make when you're, 20 and 22 actually have an impact, even though I think nowadays it's less linear, so less consequential.
It's kind of crazy how you make one little decision and then it impacts so much of your life, like making those job changes. And
no, I had an internship I worked for Carl Weisbrod in like sophomore year of college in City Volunteer Corps, like an urban Peace Corps kind of thing. And like that led to a whole series of things out of that. And that was like a random internship that I sort of lucked into. And kind of the trajectory of city planning and EDC and all that kind of, evolved from that. So I don't know what the lesson is there. Pick your internships carefully or try to find some.
Yeah. I remember when I was interviewing for my first internship, I'm in accounting, so they were asking if I wanted audit or tax. So I asked, well, how many positions of each do you have? And they said, 4 audit and 8 tax. And I said, okay, I'll take tax just to make sure I got the job. It's been there since. So I have more questions about the public and private, but I want to hear about L&M. I'm curious to hear more about. So what exactly do you do for L&M? What is your role there?
So I'm like president of L&M, which is kind of which means I have I'm kind of a kibitzer. I wander around and try to be helpful to people who are actually doing a lot of really important things every day. We are, the company's been around for about 35 years. So we are both a construction company, management company, and then a development company. And we've got a series of sort of pretty autonomous groups focused on different aspects of development and workforce housing investment. So ranging from preservation, ground up, market-oriented stuff, pure affordable stuff, mixed income stuff. We have a whole fund platform. We've got a group that focuses on stuff outside of New York. So all of those different groups are running and trying to find opportunities and sourcing and executing. And so, I try to help them, or we all work together and trying to figure out how to not be, too dumb all at once on our investment decisions.
Interesting. So with all those different groups, how do you sort of maintain company culture and, help the company grow? You've obviously grown a lot over the years.
No, it's a great question. I mean, it's like all companies that start, the founders of the company, Ron and Sandy, the L and the M, are, just incredibly decent, thoughtful, talented guys. And it's very much, and remains sort of a quasi-family operation in the sense of, you've got a lot of folks who've worked here for, 20, 30 years, both on the construction guide. I mean, Ron and Sandy will walk a site and there'll be guys working in the construction, do a laborer who's, worked for L&M for 15 years and is incredibly loyal. So it's really a nice culture. And we've tried to sustain that culture. I would say I'm probably blamed for being too culture oriented and not enough process oriented. So that's a tension. I'm kind of like accused of being the good parent sometimes, but I mean, we're sort of trying to maintain our cliche, I'll be attacked for this, but like our culture is one, we try to seek a culture of joyful excellence, right? So like we're incredibly good at what we do, but it needs to be fun and joyful. And we do, a decent job. So you're balancing constantly, honestly, you're balancing, particularly development, where everyone wants to be entrepreneurial, they want to be doing their own thing, they're kind of working for a large company, but the goal for us is, use the L&M platform, but be your own entrepreneurial self and have as much autonomy as, we try to give everyone as much autonomy as they can to do their business, source it, execute it, be out there, being representing L&M. And this is across the board, both on the development side, but even on the construction side and the management side. And when you need support and help or insight or conversation or financial, whatever it may be, the larger company is there to help you, but it wants to feel entrepreneurial, because if it doesn't feel that way, you're not going to attract and keep really talented people.
Yeah.
In terms of when you're looking at a new development, like from the L&M perspective, is there a certain strategy that you guys, keep to your core and that's what you're looking at, or has that shifted over time? Is it currently shifting? I'd like to hear about that.
It's a great question. And, I'd love to convince you that we have this sort of highly scientific sort of evaluative criteria that we sort of, overlay through things. I mean, to some extent, we make fun of ourselves for not really being that way, but actually we sort of are that way. And we talk a lot about, here are the directions we want to be heading in. We want to be levering this kind of thing. We want to be, we have an initiative to try to do sort of institutional partnerships, whether it's St. Barnabas in the Bronx or Rutgers in Newark, or UTS, sort of institutions we can partner, which kind of fits our mission of interesting civic stuff, a little public-private, whatever it may be. So those are opportunities that kind of check boxes. Obviously, mixed income, more affordable, more complicated, we joke, the higher the brain damage, the more it's sort of our kind of thing. So we're looking at that. We're also looking at do we have some interesting special sauce to add, right? So that's a knowledge and expertise on the construction side, the management side, on the development side. Is similar to something we've done. Our general philosophy is like try to change one variable at a time. So, don't go to a new market and do something you've never done. But you go to a new market, do something you're good at. All right, so that's actually interesting. And often when you go to a new market, sometimes we have partners who say, oh, I'm in this, we've done some work in California, we've done some work in New Orleans, and a lot of that work began with partners of ours on the financial side as well, saying, hey, we're in this complicated situation. Can you guys help us figure this out? So it's sort of opportunistic, but it's opportunistic with an eye toward, here are the directions we want to be growing. We want to be getting out of, we want to be expanding beyond New York. We want to be in the, Boston, Washington corridor. We want to be doing more investment in workforce and Section 8 or preservation nationally. So it's a constant dialogue and a great question. I mean, and a good question, obviously. And one, to be honest, on development, these projects take a long time. So even though you sort of say, okay, we're now doing this, it may be 4 years before this impulse is actually in the ground and under construction.
Right.
So if you have to sort of look for the long term, and I know you've invested in DC and New Orleans, like you had mentioned, in California.
Yeah.
Where do you see future opportunities? New York, is it more New York based, or do you think that you'll explore other markets?
Look, I think a lot of people far smarter than us are like, New York, they're looking at other stuff. We're long, loyal New Yorkers. We believe in New York. We think the market and economics of New York are going to remain incredibly strong, and all the COVID challenges notwithstanding. And we're also kind of humble in the sense that we've got some degree of awareness and competitive advantage to maybe add in New York. So obviously that remains the core. His business remains the core of our business. That said, we're definitely looking. We're city lovers, right? So we like transit-oriented, mixed-use, downtown, mixed-income kinds of things. So we are looking for that model. Sort of imagine sort of Essex Crossing-esque projects in other cities. So, the stuff we're doing in DC we're partners actually with Toll on a large project near Union Station. So that's kind of a mixed income project, large scale, incredibly on point for us as far as the kinds of stuff that we're thinking about. So, and then beyond that, we're looking at, as we go to further and further afield, it tends to be more kind of investing in existing assets than ground up, because it's just a little more challenging, and we've got a lot of kind of workforce expertise and experience in the HUD and other stuff. So therefore that's more immediately applicable. You can get into a market fairly straightforwardly, whereas kind of the entitlement process in the new city, it's hard enough in the city that you're from, let alone in a new city. And so therefore that tends to be more of a partnership maybe with someone and sort of a second tier execution in a new market. So we're looking nationally, carefully. Some stuff in the South. We've looked at Atlanta a bit, New Orleans stuff. We're doing a lot of work. We're trying to do some more work on affordable stuff in California, Northern California. There's a woman who used to work at L&M who's based in Northern California. Is there a glare you're getting there? Hold on a second. And we're partnering with her, and she's incredibly talented. So we're sort of looking at new stuff in Northern California as well. We've got some preservation deals there that we've done, Rancho Verde. So we're looking around. It's been great. Chicago, one of the women in our office is from Chicago, and we've always been looking for opportunities in Chicago, some stuff in Detroit. But again, Newark, Northern Jersey, 5 boroughs, Westchester. We're doing a lot of work now in New Rochelle. We have 2 projects underway in New Rochelle. Ironically enough, Ron and Sandy are from New Rochelle, but we have jumped full on into sort of the New Rochelle renaissance, which I promise you is going to be incredible. So get on the waiting list for those rental apartments now.
That's great. Caroline and I are signing up, and I heard your phone ringing, so people are probably already calling about those deals.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Laura. Thank you for that plug.
So I know that L&M historically has been very, they've emphasized, social issues and community causes.
Yeah.
Can you give some examples of what's important to L&M and how you've really focused on that?
Sure. So that's as I said, our by the nature of what we do, we are incredibly vested in the sort of health and well-being of the communities in which we work. So that's just the nature of being in the affordable housing space in general. And as you grow, and also honestly, as the projects get bigger, you have a greater opportunity to kind of, have an impact in a positive way, make a difference, do programming, do uses within your projects that are more than just, just a residential thing. So we spend a lot of time and energy focused on that. We've also in the last couple of years really spent a lot of energy kind of up with a significant uptick in kind of formalizing our philanthropic efforts, tied to, so we've got stuff that's both tied to projects and areas in which we work, but also more generally. So we spend a lot of energy on workforce development, right? So it's like helping folks, training to work, whether it's on the construction side or the management side, the operations side. Like, for example, as part of Essex Crossing, we had a team who was incredibly talented, really focusing on helping recruit people from the East Village and Lower East Side to work both on the construction side and, work at the movie theaters or work at this or whatever it may be at the retail. And so that's been great and incredibly important. We also have an initiative around food and healthy food, both in terms of dealing with food deserts, but also just sort of a general awareness of food and nutrition, and one tied in with youth. So we do this, and we've got a team of folks who are just really thoughtful and spend a lot of time doing grant making and outreach. Again, it's kind of a link sometimes to projects that we're working on, but not necessarily, and sometimes are inspired by stuff that we might be working on. Like work we're doing in St. Barnabas, there's food on the rooftop gardens, all those kinds of things up in the Bronx. So we do that a lot. We try to do it well. We could always do it better. We could always do more. I think it's helpful. I mean, people appreciate it, obviously, I hope, and we do it. It's also actually, people appreciate it a lot internally, meaning when we're trying to recruit people to work at L&M, and they're like, oh, double bottom line, are you walking the walk? You're just talking the talk, and it's sort of like an important part of who we are and what we try to do. And so people value and appreciate that.
Yeah. I saw on your website, you had a statement about Black Lives Matter. So, what are your thoughts on that and what we can be doing as a real estate community?
Yeah. That's a big question, and I'm probably, as my daughters will tell you, grossly unqualified to respond, but I will try not to hatch it up. I mean, the answer, look, let me say this. As depressing and upsetting as COVID has been, the prospect that in any way part of the legacy of COVID will be sort of the emergence and the growing support and excitement around Black Lives Matter and all the issues connected to that, to me, is actually incredible. Like, sort of the prospect that, COVID becomes the second most important story of 2020, and all the sort of social justice stuff that emerges from this becomes what this year was about. And people look back and say, it all started then in this weird time of COVID, but it was really the point at which America realized, like, enough is enough. We need to really kind of engage and embrace this issue and deal with it in a way that we have not done so far, will be amazing. So that's bizarre and thrilling. In terms of what can be done about it, I mean, look, as I said, we like to think it's been an issue that we're focused on, that we as a firm have been trying to sort of address. The reality is, there's probably a billion ways in which we've fallen short of whatever it is we thought we were trying to achieve over the years. But not for at least lack of thinking we were trying, but obviously part of what makes this moment so important is a realization of, okay, as much as you think you're doing, sort of, this is now a time to focus the effort, step it up, really be thoughtful, really be effective, think about how to address these sort of larger term issues, both, clean up your own house and see how you can help make the world a better place, both things. So we are really working hard on that. That extends, honestly, I mean, that's obviously an internal thing, but it's also for a lot of us, and my guess is for a lot of your members and whatnot, sort of, the interactions between the people who work at your company and, their clients, their residents, their contractors, and the interaction amongst those folks. And sort of, there's so many different interactions that go on that are affected by all these issues, over which you have some control and responsibility. And so how to be thoughtful on making, again, as much as you think you've been trying to do a good job, sort of really realizing that, there's tremendous room for improvement, and trying to figure out how to do better on all those fronts and kind of convey a sense of appreciation. I think for people also, honestly, step number one in all this stuff really is just the fact of awareness, whether everyone is, reading this or that, 1619 Project, or, Color of Law, or, watching 13th, whatever it may be, kind of awareness of the issues attendant to this and what has brought us to this moment, and 400 years of oppression and unfair treatment. Like, that's a useful thing, just to have that perspective, and just to sort of say, okay, I'm now thoughtful and educated on this, and I'm going to infuse all of my interactions in my life, both work and professionally, with that awareness. That may turn to a lot of action, or maybe a little bit of action, but until you have that awareness and recognition, you're kind of lost, I think. So what are we doing? So we're doing all those sort of things. We're trying internally to get everyone thinking about this, and again, educated and thoughtful, and sharing lists and thinking about initiatives we can do. So I've talked too much about this without saying anything, but that's it's both incredibly important and honestly incredibly exciting at the prospect that corner will be turned now, right? I mean, there's always the risk that it's like a lot of talk and and then you kind of say, oh, that was an exciting summer of Black Lives Matter. That would be incredibly depressing, and we cannot. The goal is not to let that happen.
Yeah. I think there's so many different ways that we can help. I keep telling myself, just like always go one step more. So yeah. And I hope it continues, because every time, you go on Instagram, everyone's posting, and there's just such an educational process now. So it seems like the world is really trying to educate themselves. And then the next step would be to really take more action. And, hopefully we can get more people of color in the real estate industry, and,
right. Yeah, no, look, that has been and remains a challenge. And I think, the sort of the need and urgency of that is obviously even more dramatically increased at this point. Yeah,
agreed. So I'm interested about the 25 Park Row project that you've been working on. Can you tell us about that?
Of course, I love that project, so I'm happy to talk about it.
Sure.
So we partnered with Michelle and Joe Friedman and Jason, their son, the family behind J&R, who sort of owned I don't know, your members are probably too young. I don't know how many people bought stuff, but there's a certain cohort who bought all their electronics at J&R through the years. Right across from City Hall Park, incredibly well located, for a long time, kind of like the mecca of downtown as a destination. And so we worked with them, and we've built what we think is sort of a beautiful, really elegant, thoughtful project. Condos up top with a commercial podium, about 70,000 feet of actually sort of flagship retail and early office space. In the base, smack looking out over City Hall Park, really beautiful. So I'll talk about that. I don't want to go in promotional mode on that too quickly. I apologize. But so we did that joint venture with them. We brought in Cook Fox and Andre Malone and sort of designed a building that has been incredibly well received in the market. We actually had a penthouse contract announced this week at the project, which in the middle of COVID is sort of a spectacular apartment, emblematic of the general 25 Park Row, which is like views on the park, open, airy, light and air, multiple fronts. So, so we built that, and obviously it's a complicated time right now. But I actually wouldn't. I mean, I'm going to give you a 2-minute plug up, if you don't mind. So, I would encourage people. It's actually flagship, standalone, separate entrance, office and commercial podium, the base. Again, looking over City Hall Park, right at the Fulton Transit Center, right by the Brooklyn Bridge, smack in the middle of downtown, smack in the middle of New York, Brooklyn, New Jersey, New York, Manhattan, sort of residents and workers, just a great opportunity. And so we think it's a pretty special opportunity in terms of visibility. And so folks who value both autonomy and visibility and great transportation. So it's a somewhat new role for us, being in the office space. Historically, obviously we're residential. We happen to have 4 or 5 great projects right now that actually have office, which I think is sort of a function of the evolving nature of where office wants to be located. So I'm happy to talk about that if that's useful. But So 25 Park Row, so we're there, we're getting our TCOs. Our first folks are going to be closing in 2 weeks and moving in. Building is almost finished, and so I encourage people to take a look. And it's really a special space. I guess the right thing to do is say go to 25parkrowoffice.com.
We did have a question come in from someone.
Happy. I guarantee. I promise you, they will be happy. Anyway, sorry.
We had a question come in on 25 Park Row specifically from someone who's dialed in. So they asked, with so much commercial space, how is the retail at 25 Park Row being thought out in the pre-COVID and now post-COVID environment? So if you can just speak to maybe how that's changed.
No, it's obviously a great question. I mean, look, the challenges of retail have existed pre-COVID. I think that at a time where things are challenged, folks tend to, kind of, I don't know what the term is, sort of retreat to the core, right? So you kind of want the closest equivalent of Main and Main if you're making an investment or looking for an opportunity. And so being in a spot that's, highly visible, incredibly well transit served, massive pedestrian traffic, vehicular traffic, and all those sort of things becomes a comforting way to do your business, right? So if you're sort of making a bet, everyone's a little bit warier right now, so you want to be making a bet on, the safest play you can. So I think for that's kind of how we think about the Park Row offering. I think also some folks like kind of the association with kind of what I'll call sort of an elegant tower. There's like a partner, we're sort of a complementary, quiet, I think we've said before, it's not a peacock, but it's really sort of thoughtful and obviously incredible views of the Woolworth building. So that moment in that spot kind of, we think, brings to the user, whether commercial or retail or even obviously the residents, a sense of kind of style and elegance that's, I think, compelling, we hope. So in terms of users, I mean, look, we're all trying to figure out. Obviously, experiential stuff was getting a little bit of resurgence, a little more complicated in COVID. I think from the office side, the ability to actually not be in a tall, I love my office developer friends and I wish them incredibly well, but in some respects, more autonomous, standalone building within a building opportunities on the office side, at least from what I'm reading, kind of feel like a pretty attractive opportunity. So whether you're a medical use or whatever the use may be, where you have separate elevator off the street, you're not going into a corridor up 50 stories, for the moment is extra compelling.
Right.
Hoping that's not, we're not living in a COVID time forever, so that will obviously evolve and change. And I'm definitely not in the camp of like, oh, the value of office in New York is going, people are not going to come to office anymore. I promise you they're coming and they'll come a lot. They may aggregate differently and they may come in a little bit less often, but they're going to it will forever be incredibly valued to be in that office and be with people. So
we actually had people are loving your 25 Park Row sell. So a few more questions. I think you mentioned the ability to do a building within a building. So someone asked about private entrance opportunity, and then I just wanted to understand, are there special ceiling heights? Are there signage opportunities that would be available for both office or retail? And I'm personally curious on the asking rents on the office side as well.
All right, so I'm glad those questions are asked because I've undersold it. It's actually, we have extremely high ceiling heights, so 19 and 16 feet ceiling heights, 13 and a half upstairs. So there's a lot of high visibility, full ceiling to ceiling, floor to ceiling glass looking out. So that's sort of a very open area opportunity. Some of the folks actually could even be mezzanine. So that's incredibly strong and compelling space, both for office users and open office experiences, as well as on the retail side. What else did you ask me?
If there's
sign. So again, honestly, we've got, over 130 feet of frontage right on City Hall Park. When the women's soccer team won and they had the ticker tape parade and we hung a giant flag and like a congratulations, sort of like smack in the center of all the activity that's happening downtown, incredibly visible. So that was, we happened to have a group of people who were partial to the women's soccer team, so that was extra fun, but it was just like, you are at the heart of all things. People coming from World Trade, people coming from the Brooklyn Bridge, all those sort of things right there. So we've got tremendous visibility, and with that, tremendous signage opportunities. So that's a really great thing. So folks for whom that's valuable, is great. And even if they're not dying for signage per se, being on a park, for all the stuff that we all love about cities, having it, whether it's an apartment or really having an office looking out over a park, is forever a beautiful thing. So
Definitely.
I don't want to be pitch moody, but all right, go ahead.
Just to wrap up the pitch on it,
Yeah.
could you give a range of asking rents or the rents you're looking to achieve down there?
Yeah, so I would say the rents are very competitive. Like it's sort of in line with the market, which is for this kind of product is in the low 70s. And we are out there. There's been a fair amount of interest right now. I think people have been sort of quiet, but now sort of beginning to come back. And so, for the right, we're looking to have a great use in our building. So I encourage folks to come and take a look, and we will figure things out with them. We would be happy to have a great user in the base of our building, and we're selling incredibly well upstairs as well, which is great.
Okay. Caroline, are you going to call David's phone again just to make it start?
Yeah, well, people can call you right now.
All right.
The phone is ringing. No, it sounds great. The project's great. So
No, it's incredible.
Congrats on the bill.
The thing of beauty, it was a labor of love for all of us. We sort of put a lot of time and it's an incredibly important civic spot right at the heart of all downtown. So we and Rochelle and Jason, who I've loved to, we're very close with and have been great partners. We took, they take that incredibly seriously. J&R, they're incredibly committed to downtown, post 9/11, they were incredibly committed to sort of helping the resurgence. So kind of doing a thing that would really enhance that setting was, extremely important to them. And I think we succeeded. I'm pretty sure we did, but, in terms of just creating a really valuable part of that, Rick Cook calls it sort of the urban room that is the Woolworth building and Spruce and us kind of coming together around City Hall Park. So.
I have a bit of a personal question. So being president of L&M and, you're so involved in all these deals and so busy, 2 daughters, do you ever just build Park Row and then you just stand there and just look up at it and you're like,
all the time. Are you kidding? All the time. Honestly, Cal and Laura, who are my partners on that deal we all sort of did together, every weekend I'm just randomly on my bike and just seeing a beautiful shot. I'm like, oh, look how beautiful this building is. So the answer is, look, in real estate development, different from, in some respects, you're doing commercial brokerage, you're doing a lot of deals. In development, every deal is, 5 to 7 years from the very earliest part to really being out of your life, which is like a child. So I say to everyone here, I'm like, listen, show it the love, mark the milestones, do all those things. Because it's not like, maybe, Jeff Wow has thousands, but most people, it's you don't do thousands of projects. And so everyone is special and important. Not only does it feel that way, but it is that way. And so you can't, I'm a person who's excitable by nature. So, but I, you can't overdo it and pay enough. Obviously there's a real estate maxim, I guess, don't fall in love with your buildings. Which I don't know. I can't live my life that way. You got to fall in love with your buildings.
So what other buildings, what other projects has L&M done that you sort of fell in love with, and what have been your favorites over the years?
Again, like your children, an answer you're not allowed, your question you're not allowed to answer. Every building. Look, honestly, and I'll say this, part of the thrill of L&M as a company is in fact the range of stuff that we do. Right. So it's I get to, or we get to, and the firm gets to kind of share in everyone else's joys. Right. So, the team that opens up that Haynes department store in Newark, which is a transformative project in the heart of Newark, really helping the Newark Renaissance, sees the project we're doing in St. Barnabas again in the Bronx, which is an amazing project with the hospital, affordable housing, wellness, all those sort of transformative things. Who then go to the Market Line at Essex Crossing and have an incredible night of free food from all the vendors, and everyone is bonding and bringing their spouses and saying, how great is this that I sort of do this? Or going up to a NYCHA project in the Bronx at Baychester Murphy, where we're taking what was a pretty rough kind of challenge situation and really sort of transforming it into this, we think kind of beautiful new place, and folks who are living there are incredibly excited and it's well managed, and all those sort of things are kind of thrilling, right? And so that range of things, all of which revolve around, being civically transformational in a positive way, makes it great. You know, I mean, look, the affordable stuff that we do and the preservation stuff that we do is, it's funny. Preservation, you know, which is sort of buying and fixing up existing affordable and workforce housing, you know, it's not necessarily as like high profile often as ground up is, but it's incredibly transformative because you come in and with, you know, you have a family and families and people that are living there who are often not that happy with how things have been going and the quality and nature of their physical plant and the operational plant. And you come in and you say, we're actually going to make it really great. And they look at you and they roll their eyes and they say, yeah, you're full of it. You know, you're full of it. Like, I've heard that before. Same old, same old. And then you have a team of dedicated, talented construction guys and gals and management people and sort of working closely and meeting with folks and intergovernmental community folks. And people are like, huh, wow, look at this. They actually did what they said they were going to do. And it's actually really beautifully, like Arvern View out of the Rockaways is a good example of that. And people's lives, you hope, are transformed and better. And that happens actually incredibly quickly. So that's really special. So, you know, anyway, so that's what we do. So that's all those things I love. We're working a deal in New Haven right now, which actually has office, life sciences, Winchester, right next to Yale. Incredible opportunity. So those are all exciting for us and interesting in different ways.
We do have someone asking specifically about a project. So they asked if you could tell us a little bit about Sendero Verde, which I admittedly don't know a lot about, so I'd love to hear about as well.
Sendero Verde is a good example. It's an unbelievable project. If we were doing nothing else other than Sendero Verde, you would be thrilled about it. So basically, this is a site, almost a full block, Madison to Park, 111th, 112th, East Harlem. It came up in conjunction with the new zoning, but had a separate Bueller process, and basically the city, to its credit, went out and said, we sort of take this site, we want to have a transformative, multi-phased, mixed income thing. We want it to be passive house. So it's actually, I think it will be sort of one of them. There's a constant thing of passive house, sort of the large, you know, passive house is sort of environmentally very advanced. You know, we actually just finished one actually in Beach Green. So, and Sendero has a mix. It's got charter school in it, community-oriented use and sort of wellness stuff, mixed range of AMIs in the housing, outdoor space. There was originally community gardens there. You may recall sort of along those things, existing community gardens. That was actually a very complicated thing because the folks at community gardens were like, life is good. Why are you messing with this? And the city, to its credit, navigated that incredibly carefully. And we, as part of the project, have kind of rebuilt, we hope better than before, sort of the community gardens. And so those gardeners and the community groups for each different groups for different gardens will sort of take them over again and transform them. And there'll be a series of gardens with a pathway coming from the street up and through the mid space in the back of the building. And then you've got a gymnasium for the school. So all these kind of uses coming together. It's thrilling, you know, and again, the scale allows you to kind of be more impactful, right? So, you know, when we used to do a 100-unit project, we love those, but it's hard to do a sort of more dramatic, impactful thing. When you have a whole block, you can begin to do a series of things. So Sendero phase 1 is underway. We are looking to get phase 2 going. So I encourage folks to walk by and see it. It's actually right nearby. We're doing a lot actually in East Harlem. We have another project actually called the Carolina. It used to be Lex Gardens on 107th and Park. You know, over 400 units of really well-designed, affordable housing on that stretch. So,
named after our very own Caroline.
Exactly.
Yeah, we'll have to move in.
Sounds great. So, I think I know the answer, but what are your thoughts on the office lower Manhattan office market, the residential market? You know, there's been quite incredible growth over the last 10 years. So, you know, where do you see do you see it continuing?
I mean, it's funny. I told you I worked when I was at HRNA, one of my first projects, we sort of did, this was like in the 90s, so I'm old. We did like a sort of analytic advocacy piece on the opportunity for Lower Manhattan to be a residential mecca. So all you had was, Southbridge and Battery Park City, but you didn't have any of the new stuff that was going on. And we're sort of like making the case for why downtown could be a great residential mixed use environment. You know, every spot downtown is a 10-minute walk from water in every direction. unparalleled subways, all those sort of things. And I think the world now, honestly, is getting more appreciative of mixed use districts, right? So the world is moving away from, I got an office district and a residential district. That's the opposite of how, Essex Crossing is a good example. Everyone wants to be, work, office, Hudson Yards is a great example, right? I mean, sort of the vision there is all those things together, depending, different, we're talking about different levels of affordability and whatnot, but those are how people want to live. So I think downtown as a whole neighborhood is the essence of that, right? Like it's got great restaurants, it's got great parks, it's got great waterfront, it's got incredible office, all those sort of things. And it's got beautiful, incomparable historic buildings. So like, that's kind of pretty special, So I think, look, we're bullish. I mean, I'm bullish, and I think with good reason. I don't think, the post-COVID legacy, I think people are ill-considered if they think, I think there'll be a change, honestly, in how people live their lives. And I do think what I said before is the case, which is, I think people have come to appreciate spending a little more time with their kids or being home for dinner or whatever it might be, or having some more flexibility in their schedule. So the kind of like, I need to be in the office from 7 in the morning to, 8 at night every day. Maybe that edge will be taken off, which I think is probably good for society, but it will not take off the edge of like getting together, doing work together, because we're all busy getting done the stuff that was in play and had momentum pre-COVID, but you can't build a business and do new deals and be entrepreneurial on Zoom. As wonderful as this all is, it's like, it's hard to meet people and get deals and build trust on Zoom. So,
Yeah. I think it also probably depends on the age of the people too, right? Like if you're more seasoned in your career, you have your network, you have people that you can call and have a Zoom with David Dishy from L&M. Right. People starting out in their career, they want that social. They need to network and meet people in the office. So it's so important.
Young people in particular, it's like you're a talented young up and comer. You want to be in an office and like having people be like, holy cow, that person like gets stuff done. I love them. I want them to be, I want to work with them. Like it's hard to do on Zoom.
Yeah, for sure.
And again, I don't want to obsess on COVID because this time will pass. Like we're going to be in a different time. So
it's true. It's true. So you've had a lot of years of experience and advice, and there might be a lot of those younger generation at home now trying to figure out what to do, where to go. Any advice for them?
You mean, should they go be a ski bum this year for the thing they decided not to do for a long time? I think, look, it's a version of what we were just talking about, right? Which is like the most effective way to both, I'm not sure what the right term is, find mentors, attract people, kind of like, grow your career. And it's like cliche, but like, it's just do an incredibly good job at the thing you've been at least at the thing you've first been asked to do, right? And be like a person whose reputation is that you take care of business. I know this is like a dopey, dorky thing, but like, it is like, you'd be amazed how many people don't have that, don't convey that, right? And so like, if you're that person and the people you work with, like sense that about you, like opportunities will build and you will find ways to doing things that are interesting. And look, and life is incredibly long. And so therefore, it's long, but even to this day, almost half the conversations I have every day, for better or worse, I can track to something, 15, 20 years ago when I knew someone or met someone or was working with someone or like built trust with someone. So particularly in the New York real estate space, which is a fairly, small scale place, and obviously for a lot of reasons should be broader and more diverse and expanded. But at the end of the day, the nature of real estate, which is we all like love cities and want to be in New York and kind of you're out and about, like all those relationships that you're building, I guess this is networking, but it's less about networking than just like building trust amongst people, that endures. I have folks I met when I was 21, at city planning, who I still call urgently today, for some zoning issue, whatever it might be. So, don't be a jerk, be kind, be effective. Life will serve you well.
Good advice. Do you have any mentors?
Stupid advice, but nevertheless, that's nice of you to say.
Do you have any mentors that sort of gave you that advice through your career? Like, do you still have any mentors now?
I learn most from my daughters at this point. They're the ones who remind me how dumb and ignorant I am. I mean, honestly, I'm joking, but not joking in terms of like who you're learning from. You know, there comes a moment in which you sort of pivot from like, oh, I want to learn from these wise older people to like, I don't know, I want to learn from smart young people. You know, and I think anyone worth their salt is spending as much energy learning from smart young people than from wise, older people. So if you maintain that balance, and even at any age, if you're 30, the guy who's 20 or gal is 20 has something to teach you as much as the person who's 40 does. And, I'll keep, you can extrapolate the math from there. So all the folks that I've worked for, and I've tried to work for, thoughtful, kind, smart people, you take a little bit away from each one of those things. So I try to be, so I don't retire to the club with my mentor and sort of say, here's my career planning strategy. Although I envy people who are able to sort of to do that. And I think actually the world is pretty good now in kind of encouraging networks. And that actually, I would say, I think actually the women's real estate organizations in New York, largely because they need to be because of the deficiency on sort of the representation of women in real estate, but like have been really good at that, or they seem to be really good at that. And I kind of admire that in terms of just the way with which they sort of recruit and help mentor, women to really be effective and successful in real estate.
Yeah.
And and I try to be helpful to people who ask me for advice. I don't think anyone probably thinks of me as their mentor per se, but we'll see.
That's something for YMWREA, our organization. We really focus on mentoring, and it's called Young Men's and Women's, but it's actually a 70-year-old organization. So,
Any members still who are there?
Yeah, we have a lot. Yeah, we have a lot of older members and then newer members, and so it's really enjoyable to go to the events and sort of see the bridging between the two and the generations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, look, part of the beauty of real estate, honestly, as opposed to like, look, investment banking is great. You make a ton of money. It's really, but people who are in real estate kind of tend to love what they do. So I love nothing more than, we're negotiating with some, 95-year-old guy who is sharp as a tack, who's owned X million properties and is like, call me about the operating expenses or whatever it might be on some property. And he loves it. He loves calling, or, more he than she, but he loves calling and sort of like real estate people, man, part of what keeps us all in this business is, what you said before, that building, that space, the physicality of it is really fun. So, there's no retiring from real estate.
Yeah. So with your career trajectory starting in public, going to private, and now you're doing a lot of these, you have relationships with public and private and bridging those things. I guess, how do you reflect back on making that transition, and how do you sort of work with the public sector and achieve your goals?
Look, I think the first step, honestly, it's nothing particularly sophisticated, right? It's patience and appreciation, right? Which is the people who are in the public sector work incredibly hard and they kind of really care about what they do. And they're incredibly dedicated, particularly in the space that we're in, city planning, HPD, EDC. So these are really talented people who care a lot and they're trying incredibly hard, And so if you bring a kind of bad attitude toward bureaucracy to the dance, it's not going to work, right? Because you sort of have to really step, and look, it's hard. There's a built-in aversion to kind of discretionary decision-making in the public sector, because it's just, you're not rewarded for being entrepreneurial necessarily as much as you might want to be, and so therefore there's a little bit of, the bureaucratic is the nature of that business. But, you can be a jerk about it and people will be a jerk back, and, you'll get the energy that you put in. If you're sort of appreciative and you understand where people are coming from, but nevertheless are willing to beat your head against the wall. Real estate development is basically, real estate for us is like a business of just beating our head against the wall, and every 1,000th time you make a small dent and you have a party, right? So it's a similar thing on dealing with bureaucracy. You're sort of willing to be patient and know that it's going to take longer and be more annoying. But by the way, it's long and annoying with a lot of private sector people I deal with. So it's not a distinct quality of the public sector, but you bring that sensibility. And L&M, everyone here at L&M, it's a lot of them have worked in the public sector they are, I would say, urbanists almost first before they're profit-motivated real estate developers. So it's a nice blend. And so they bring that kind of part of what I think attracts you to a place like LM in the first place is the opportunity for social impact, all those sort of kinds of things. So they're bringing that appreciation. So that's what you do. You're considerate, but you are relentless, and if you're not relentless, I mean, Ron Moles will tell you, if you don't call every hour on the hour for 50 days on end until the thing you want to have happen happens, it will not happen. So many is the time where 73 minutes have passed and he's like, I don't understand, you didn't call them? Haven't you called them 18 times? So that's a balance between being considerate and being relentless.
We have a question that kind of ties into the public sector. Someone asked, what is your outlook for new affordable housing in the city, considering state and city budget cutbacks?
Yeah, well, this is obviously a monumentally significant question at the moment. And I think everyone is waiting to figure out, at the city, state, and federal level, like what resources are going to look like, what opportunities are going to look like. The capital budget aspect of things is a little different from the expense budget. So there's sort of sometimes, and these are longer term endeavors. So there's opportunity to do stuff on the capital side, which is sort of the heart of a lot of the subsidy of affordable housing that you can be able to do, even though there's massive challenges and deficiencies in the budget right now. But, you would be ridiculous not to be incredibly concerned and focused on trying to figure out how this is going to be. And everyone at the city is, at the highest level of stress on this issue and trying to figure it out right now. So the irony is the inverse of that is, I think there's an incredible, there's like even a greater appreciation at this moment for all the stuff we were talking about before on the importance of affordable housing and the importance of sort of fairness and diversity and all those sort of things in our cities. So you have this tremendous built-up pressure of saying, like, we need to build great communities and build great affordable housing. And oh, by the way, we have no money. So those are, in conflict a little bit, but at least one of them is a mitigant to the other. And so, and you also look for cost-effective ways to do stuff. So you look for ways that you can leverage private investment or as of right stuff or sort of things built into the tax code, whatever it may be, on the preservation side, sort of stuff where kind of the bang for your buck is greater and you can achieve some affordability objectives, without necessarily bringing the same resources to bear. So I think the city, we're looking at that every day. The city's looking at that every day. I think the fact of life is things are going to be a little bit more drawn out than they were looking like they were going to be a year ago. But they are not going to be drawn out to a point of not happening. They will happen. They'll just happen more slowly, and there'll be more energy spent on trying to come up with new ideas, with existing stock and other stuff. So, we talk about it every day, and it's not obviously New York is faces a particularly acute crisis in this way, but it's a nationwide challenge. So we will see. Obviously, how November plays out will have an impact on that conversation in a significant way.
For sure. Any other questions, Caroline, you wanted to cover?
Yeah, we do have kind of a fun one, and I don't know if this is like a setup or not, but someone asked if you could tell us about your hobbies and that you are a professional kite surfer.
No, that's the most ridiculous question. That's like a setup. That's like an Adam Spees trying to humiliate me kind of question. I don't even know what it is. The answer is that's not true. The answer is my daughter and I spent 3 days learning to kite surf, and 98% of that time was spent with my face flopping into the water. I dream of being a great kite surfer, but it's all in my dreams, so we'll see. I spend more time on my bike, but I'm just like a commuter biker, not a fancy lycra biker.
So what do you do to disconnect from all this?
What do I do? I'm sort of a boring lover of the city. So like, I honestly love to hop on my bike and just go around and, early in the morning and sort of see the city, spend time with my kids, read, spend time in parks. I don't know. So all those sort of things. I'm like, I've actually spent more time cooking during COVID than I historically do, which is a bad thing. My wife is unfairly to her carried more cooking. She's like just a better cook than I am, but we've, I think part of the legacy of COVID is a real opportunity to really improve your, your cooking skills. So I'm hoping to maintain that momentum.
Nice. Have you been able to cook with your daughters?
Oh yeah, no, we had a whole schedule. Each one of us, we had 4 of us, so each day one of us was responsible for meals, and on the 5th day it was takeout. So we sort of did that cycle. That, watching Sopranos and eating Anna Karenina, that was basically our COVID entertainment. But it was fun.
That is fun. My daughter does cooking with my mom, her grandmother.
No, it's the best.
On Tuesdays, so I don't know what they're making tonight, but there's something in the works downstairs.
It'll be well served tonight, I think.
I hope so. So your daughters are a little older than mine. I have twin daughters that are 12, and yours are 17 and 20, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 12 is an interesting time. Now that you've survived a few more years, what advice would you give?
Again, my children would say any advice I give you would be dumb, ignorant, dorky father advice that would have no value whatsoever. I would say, I don't know, you got to pick your battles carefully. Obviously, you can't take anything personally from your kids. Do whatever they say to you, however they act, don't take it personally. You got to just let it slough off you and realize, there's larger things going on. You gotta, if you have daughters, obviously you need to, make sure you treat, you gotta raise all kids equally, right? Like not just daughters. So it's sort of like a fierceness and an opportunity. And honestly, if you have sons, you gotta treat your sons that, they're gonna be entering into a partner, if they're involved with a woman or marrying a woman, like those are gonna be equal partnerships in their lives. So like in some respects, if you spend your energy on your daughters on that, we haven't solved the problem, right? So this almost gets back to our Black Lives Matter issue, but on a gender issue, right? Which is, you need to tell your sons that, they should be expecting to do half of all the domestic responsibilities in the house if they have a partnership. You should be telling them to expect to not take have their spouse take their name, whatever it may be, all those sort of things. So I realize you didn't ask me that question. I'm sorry.
No, it's true though. Even just being quarantined here in New Jersey, I find there's so many dads walking around with their kids that I haven't seen before.
Yeah.
So I feel like this has really created an opportunity.
Yeah. So give them space, pick your battles, figure out who they are, not who you want them to be, and support their impulse to be that person, which is a speech I've gotten many times from my daughters. When I forced them into travel soccer weekend after weekend, one of whom loved it and the other was like, you forced me. And I'm like, I didn't force you. You said you wanted to do it. She said, I just said it because I thought you would be happy, but I didn't want to do it. Oh. So I messed that up.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Caroline. Are we good on questions?
Right.
Yeah, I think we got to most of them.
All right.
Office space, Park Row, Essex Crossing. These are all great. I know you have a lot of office brokers out there. Those are both incredible office opportunities. But Park Row in particular, we are open. Building is done. I encourage folks to take a look at it.
And with the residential right there, it's so timely to have retail, residential, and office all in the same spot.
Really spectacular offering. So I would love to talk. Thank you for taking the time for this. This was fun. I hope it wasn't too boring. I appreciate what you guys are doing. So, and obviously, I mean this sincerely. I'm a huge broker fan. I mean, it's like I really place a huge amount of stock in kind of the importance that. And I realize, actually, this is not brokers. This is all real estate. But I know you probably have a fair number of brokers. But for the importance of brokerage in the New York community in terms of making things actually happen is unparalleled. So.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed getting to know you better. So
you as well. This was fun.
It was a lot of fun. Well,
your daughters, let me know how things work out. Caroline, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great July 4th weekend, everyone, and see you soon.
Yeah, have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Be well.
Bye.